So, have you ever experienced this incredibly frustrating cycle? You know the one. You spot what looks like a glaring issue in your organization. Maybe it's sluggish sales, or maybe just intense friction between teams. You pour time, energy, capital into fixing it. And hey, the solution works. Numbers go up, people seem a bit happier. But then, well, 6 months later, a brand new problem appears out of absolutely nowhere. A year later, another one. It's like every single answer you implement just creates room for a completely different symptom to pop up down the line. It's exhausting, right?
That endless cycle brings us to this incredibly powerful quote from the source material we're digging into today. The author, who's a veteran strategic consultant, realized something pretty fundamental. He said, "We were becoming better at solving problems without becoming better at finding the right problem." It's a huge shift in perspective. Notice the contrast there. Instead of endlessly executing solutions, which honestly most businesses are actually pretty good at, what if we meticulously diagnose the actual root issue first? Like, what if the problem we're solving isn't even the real problem at all? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are decoding a fascinating and highly pragmatic framework known as Bharateeya Strategic Intelligence, or BSI for short. We're going to break down its 7 core disciplines and show you exactly how to stop playing corporate whack-a-mole, where you smash one issue only for another to immediately pop up, and start identifying the true levers of success in your work. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with finding the right problem, then move to the BSI framework explained, dive into the 7 disciplines of BSI, touch on evidence and execution, and wrap up with discipline, not a destination. Let's get right to it. Section 1, Finding the Right Problem. The core mandate here is to diagnose before solving. Sounds super simple, right? But in reality, it's incredibly rare. As the author points out, what a client initially calls a sales problem is very often just a positioning problem. What looks like a people problem, usually a decision-making problem. And what constantly gets blamed on poor execution almost always begins with totally unclear direction from leadership. The highly visible, super painful issue screaming for your attention, that is rarely the actual strategic issue. Because a strategist's responsibility is not to solve every single problem that lands on their desk. Their real job is to identify the maximum friction. And this is defined as the one single problem whose resolution creates the greatest movement across the entire system. Think about that for a second. If you aren't pointing your resources, your budget, and your team's energy at this precise point of maximum friction, you are literally just treating symptoms. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. Section 2, the BSI framework explained. As we said, we operate on a diagnosis-first principle. Now, while BSI draws its naming and foundational ethos from indigenous Indian traditions, specifically rooting its hard-headed logic in the Arthashastra, which is an ancient manual of statecraft, it is entirely a modern, systematic discipline designed for today's leaders. This isn't some theoretical history lesson. It is an extreme exercise in modern pragmatism. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I already use OKRs or Porter's 5 forces or a balanced scorecard. Great, keep them. BSI is definitely not a replacement for your existing strategic frameworks. Traditional strategy frameworks, like the ones on the left, are fantastic once a problem has been properly named. They help you choose between options and build a business case. But BSI, over on the right, is the foundational layer underneath. Think of it as layer 0. It runs before any other framework to ensure your fundamental diagnosis is actually correct. So diagnosis first, and then you can confidently choose whichever strategic instrument you prefer to carry out the work. Section 3, the 7 disciplines of BSI. Now, this is a fixed sequence. Through years of testing across real businesses and executive teams, the author found that these 7 specific disciplines consistently emerged. And I really need to state this with absolute clarity. Their order is fixed, and it is entirely non-negotiable. You cannot skip a step, and you definitely cannot reverse them. Notice how this flows. The framework strictly forces you to pass through reality, naming the exact friction and direction, choosing your path, before it will ever let you touch execution down at the bottom. Without this strict sequence, human nature just pushes us to jump ahead. We all want to feel productive, right? So we execute first and try to figure out the results later. We build a product and then try to figure out who actually wants to buy it. This cyclical map exists to make that incredibly costly mistake impossible. Let's look at the very first step in that sequence, drishti. Now, in Sanskrit, this translates to sight or a philosophical viewpoint. But in BSI, it means a directed gaze. It's the rigid discipline of seeing reality exactly as it is, supported by actual empirical evidence before you decide anything.
Seeing reality is actually incredibly difficult in a business setting. We're blinded by cognitive biases, office politics, legacy systems, and frankly, just the loudest voices in the room. So, drishti isn't passively looking around at whatever catches your eye. It is the deliberate, highly focused placement of your attention to cut right through all of that fog. Which leads me to ask you directly, what is your maximum friction? Because if left alone, human attention naturally settles on whatever is loudest, newest, or most emotionally charged in the office. We all suffer from squeaky wheel syndrome. But noise is not a measure of importance. If your strategy is currently failing or stalling out, there's a really good chance you just looked where the noise was instead of directing your gaze to find the true underlying friction.
Once you find that true friction, the framework demands you answer this rapid-fire sequence of highly pragmatic questions before you do a single ounce of actual work. 1. What is the friction? That's drishti, as we just discussed. 2. Which direction removes it? That's nishaya, which translates to ending doubt. Because friction pulls a team in 10 different directions, you must commit to a single, decisive path forward to cut through the paralysis. 3 is bodha, who must align. A brilliant strategy fails instantly if key stakeholders aren't brought in early. You can't execute in a vacuum. You have to identify exactly who holds the keys to making this reality. 4. Swadarama. What unique strength do we leverage to win? This is all about identity. Don't fight on your competitors' terms. Play your own game, using the unique assets that only your organization possesses. 5. Margareka. In what exact sequence should this happen? Operations have to happen in a logical order. You literally cannot build the roof before you pour the foundation. This discipline demands a rigorous operational roadmap. And 6. Praman. What evidence proves this will actually work? Look, hope is not a strategy. Before deploying capital, you need empirical data, early tests, or concrete proof that your chosen direction will actually remove the friction. Only after you survive this intellectual gauntlet are you allowed to commit major resources. It entirely stops leaders from building massive, expensive plans on top of totally untested assumptions.
Section 4. Evidence and execution. We've diagnosed the problem, we've chosen a direction, we've aligned our people, and we've tested our assumptions with real evidence. Now, we finally reach the 7th discipline, sadhana. This is where we operationalize all that theory. This is the daily, gritty, consistent execution, the actual building, fixing, and scaling of the strategy over time.
To ensure this execution doesn't just decay into complete chaos, the source provides this brilliantly simple strategic scorecard. You check these 5 metrics once every 90 days. And notice I said 90 days, not weekly. As the author wisely notes, a weekly stop rule is simply an invitation to quit on a difficult Tuesday. Every 90 days, you pause and ask, has our original friction baseline actually moved? That links right back to drishti. Is the daily work still aimed at our chosen direction, or have we drifted? That answers to nishchaya. Are we jumping ahead in our operational sequence? That keeps margareka in check. This scorecard forces your daily, messy execution to constantly answer back to your original pristine diagnosis. It basically guarantees reality hasn't shifted underneath your feet while you were busy working.
Section 5. Discipline, not a destination. Every achievement creates a new reality. The beautiful and maybe highly challenging truth about business is that success is never final. Every new reality you create by executing a good strategy presents a brand new maximum friction. When you solve one bottleneck, the system naturally expands and a new bottleneck appears somewhere else. Strategy isn't a finish line you cross. It's a relentless, ongoing cycle of diagnosis and execution.
So the crucial point is summarized perfectly by this quote from the text. Ideas create possibility, discipline creates reality. Most strategies out there don't die because they were poorly designed or because the team lacked intelligence. Not at all. They die in the gap between the idea and the execution. They fail because they were never transformed from exciting whiteboard possibilities into the boring, consistent reality of daily action. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. Look closely at your own teams, your own massive projects, and your own daily operations. Are you just reacting to the loudest noise and randomly executing exciting ideas? Or are you actively practicing the structured, methodical discipline required to truly diagnose and remove your maximum friction? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this framework helps you pause, direct your gaze, and find the truly right problem to solve.